Hello, I'm Alex Lafkis. Today I'm going to talk to you about how to read an incoming front or the next front approaching as far as a weather front. What I typically do is as I look out and try to figure out what days I'm going to fish which week or not, because I'm semi fortunate and I can call clients and decide which day to schedule trips. It's going to make fishing better for them. I'm going to have more fun because they're biting. It works better for everyone. Um, so what do I look at? I'm going to pull up my 7 to 10 day forecast. Obviously the closer it is to you, the more accurate it's going to be. If it's off in the distance, who knows yet. Anyways, it starts approaching. I'm going to look for a few things in that front. One I want to look at, I'm going to look at a couple different things. Windfinder.com, and that will give you 3 hour windows of how the wind direction and intensity is going to be for the location you'll be in. And I'm going to look at a 7 day forecast or my extended forecast. Now, what I want to look at is every incoming front, I feel like there should be some sort of activity. So I'm going to look at it starting kind of the day before. I typically look for stability in the system. So if you have a big system coming in with a lot of wind, and a lot of these fronts you see more spring and fall. Summer's more stable. It's very stable. Barometer doesn't swing much, not aggressive. So a lot of this stuff is more spring, winter, fall. Anyway, as that front comes approaching, there's going to be a time where you're going to see stability in the barometer. That's there because the front is on its way in. Fish sense that that front is coming in. Typically what I'll see is before the wind picks up and gets blowing very hard, a lot of times there's a bite in there. When the wind starts blowing a lot, that signifies that the pressure is starting to change. That can be a little trickier. Now, I've seen times, so typically your barometer is a little flat, and then all of a sudden the wind starts picking up, things start changing, your barometer starts falling. I've seen fish go in that falling barometer. I've seen trout do it, especially if combined with rising water or something like that. Typically, I see better activity, I would say, the majority of the time, on the stable parts before the barometer starts to moving. Yes, I've had phenomenal days with the falling barometer, but if I could pin some of the better bite windows, it's been at the very bottom of that barometer. It's not on the fall, but it's more before the spike. Now, you'll be able to tell that. So the first part of the incoming front is the acceleration in the wind and also usually the cloud band. That's kind of the first things that designate that the front's coming and it's going to go. Typically on the front side, I like the clear skies before the clouds move in, although I've seen it where they turn on an hour after the clouds, whatever. A lot of times it's the clear skies before the incoming front. Then it usually at some point in that bottom of the barometer, as that front's kind of starting to want to push out, you get a wind shift. Okay, that's your stability before the barometer starts spiking up. It's not much. It's very brief. It's very short. Put yourself in position. When they go, you should know. It's a tough one to time for some fish, but I've done really well with trout. What usually you'll see in there and how to designate it or look at it, look at your Windfinder app, look at your hourly forecast, and you'll start seeing a wind shift in there. You can really feel it when you're out there. And after you've done it enough, you don't have to look at anything. You'll feel it. You'll feel the wind kind of shifting, a little dead time in the middle. Just environmental conditions start to change, and then you should see the fish follow after you start seeing that. That's kind of the bottom of the barometer. Now, usually what follows after that bottom of the barometer is a hard rise, quick rising barometer. That's usually pretty tough fishing. Once again, I've caught some fish in it, and nothing's impossible, but what I tend to see, if you're not in one of these sweet spots, you might catch good fish, you might catch big fish, whatever it is. Usually you don't catch the dominant ones. I've caught 28-inch males that were not a dominant fish because they were thin, post-spawn. They're kind of in a spot where if they don't eat, they're going to die. So I don't tell as much from a fish in that shape or a post-spawn fish as I do a fish that's pre-spawn and full. Those ones tell you because they're at peak optimal conditioning. They're in the best shape they're ever going to be. They don't need to make a mistake. So it's this little short stability parts that you find these bigger, more dominant fish in. And the backside window that I haven't seen as good for trout, but I have seen times where it's been a dominant pattern, and it typically takes place if that barometer rises for a couple of days on the backside. And usually where you'll see it is right when the barometer caps off at the top. A lot of people say a high barometer is bad fishing. I've had some very good fishing at 30 point, I think it was 6.9 on the barometer, but it was stable. And what happened was you had a lot of wind for a few days, and then finally the wind started calm and everything started stabilizing. Little flat spot in the barometer, fish feed pretty good. And then as soon as it adjusted its train or just that those ones a lot of times come up to a top and then slowly start falling off the backside. It was an hour at the top there. None of this stuff is set in stone, and a lot of it just takes time being out there to realize what's going on. Then after you've been out there long enough, you can start putting these pieces together. um, this is not foolproof. This is not 100%. This is what I look for, and kind of how I try to identify bite windows with an incoming front, outgoing front. There's usually something involved, and in these fronts typically you see real bright spots of excellent fishing and very bad fishing right around it. And that's kind of the issue with these fronts, is like, yeah, it can be phenomenal, but if you're not there that hour, it can seem like it was horrible. That happens a lot with these fronts. If you have more stable weather, you can figure it out and it stays stable. Your fishing is consistent through stability. As you get in unstable weather, fishing becomes a little more inconsistent, but it can be highlighted with some very good fishing. Knowing when to be out there on the front is the key. Hope some of that stuff helps. It's a big way how I guide and fish, so pay attention, and it should help you put some more fish in the boat. Thanks.